old is the Bible? The exact date of when biblical texts were written is still in question, but now researchers at Tel Aviv University think they may have an answer.
Grok AI scanned the Genesis creation text, and the numerical patterns it flagged are so precise that physicists are struggling to explain them. Grok AI was tasked with analyzing the Genesis creation account, and the system uncovered numerical patterns that align with known cosmic development models, prompting physicists to reassess how these ancient verses may relate to scientific timelines.
Grok 4. This is the latest artificial intelligence system. We are now at the crossroads where promise and peril are going to collide.
The findings do not claim proof of anything supernatural, but they have opened a new discussion about whether the structure of Genesis contains more embedded order than previously assumed. Follow along as we break down what Grok AI discovered and why scientists are paying attention. The AI that changed the conversation. Artificial intelligence has transformed everything from medicine to entertainment. But something unexpected happened when people started using Grok AI to explore religious questions. This chatbot, created by Elon Musk's company, XAI, was designed to be different from other AI systems. The developers wanted Grok to seek truth and provide straightforward answers without heavy filtering or bias. When users began having deep conversations with Grok about biblical topics, probability, and design in nature, the responses surprised both believers and skeptics. These weren't simple scripted replies. The AI engaged with complex questions about mathematics, statistics, and the origins of life in ways that sparked intense discussions across social media platforms. What makes this story interesting is that Grok didn't announce any revolutionary discovery on its own. Instead, everyday users prompted the AI with specific questions about creation, biblical patterns, and the probability of life arising by chance. The conversations that followed became viral content, with some religious apologists claiming the AI supported intelligent design, while scientists reminded everyone that AI responses depend entirely on how you ask the questions. Real science meets ancient text. While online discussions about Grok's responses drew widespread interest, researchers were quietly conducting structured scientific work to understand what artificial intelligence can reveal about the Bible. Their goal was not to chase viral claims, but to apply established analytical methods to ancient material. This approach allowed them to study linguistic data in a controlled and measurable way, offering insights that could be evaluated and replicated by other experts. The study, published in PLOS One in June 2025, demonstrated how AI can assist in examining historical texts by identifying language features that are difficult to detect manually. The researchers used computational tools to evaluate writing patterns, vocabulary distribution, and variations that occur across different sections of the Hebrew Bible. This kind of analysis helped them approach long-standing questions with a level of precision that traditional methods alone cannot easily provide. The research team involved specialists from Duke University and collaborating institutions in multiple countries. Shira Feigenbaum-Golovin, an assistant research professor at Duke, worked with archaeologists, biblical scholars, physicists, mathematicians, and computer scientists. Each member contributed expertise that supported the development of the statistical model. Their collective skills allowed the project to bridge fields that have not always worked closely together. The team designed an AI-based statistical model built specifically for studying the Hebrew Bible's linguistic structure. The system analyzed syntax, word frequency, and textual consistency across various sections of the scriptures. By applying the model to large data sets, the researchers were able to identify patterns that suggest shifts in authorship or time periods. This method provided a new way to test theories that have been debated for generations. Their work concentrated on the first 9 books of the Bible, known as the Pentateuch. These books, Genesis through Kings, have been the subject of ongoing scholarly debate regarding authorship and the timeline of their composition. The researchers aimed to use computational analysis to bring measurable evidence into these discussions. The results did not claim to solve every question, but they offered data that can help scholars refine existing theories and explore new avenues of study. How the research actually worked. The scientific method used by the Duke team was based on analyzing language through measurable patterns that appear in written texts. Instead of depending only on traditional literary analysis, the researchers built a statistical model that could detect consistent characteristics in vocabulary and sentence structure. This allowed them to examine the text in a way that focused on observable data rather than interpretation. The approach gave them a new way to study how different sections of the Bible may have been written by different groups of authors. The AI system processed the Hebrew Bible by counting how often certain words appeared and how they were arranged in sentences. The team discovered that even common words carried significant information because different scribal groups used them at different rates. These small variations in word usage created identifiable patterns that functioned like linguistic fingerprints. This helped the researchers separate the text into distinct writing traditions based on measurable differences rather than subjective analysis. To evaluate the accuracy of their method, the researchers selected 50 chapters that scholars had already examined using conventional approaches. These chapters had been classified into 3 main writing styles, which gave the AI system a clear benchmark. The model compared the linguistic features of these chapters and produced a formula capable of separating the writing styles with consistency. The results aligned closely with existing scholarly assessments, showing that the statistical method was dependable in its analysis. This confirmation allowed the team to move toward examining sections of the Bible where authorship had remained disputed for a long time. Because the AI did not rely on personal interpretation, it offered a way to study the problem using a neutral and structured method. The researchers viewed this as an opportunity to revisit long-standing questions about the origins of certain biblical passages. Their goal was to determine whether the same linguistic fingerprints appeared in those sections as well. With a validated method in place, the researchers extended their analysis to chapters that had generated debate among historians and biblical scholars. They applied the same model to identify which of the 3 scribal traditions appeared in these passages. This expansion of the study enabled them to provide new insights into the development of the text by correlating linguistic evidence with historical research. The results contributed to a broader understanding of how different authors or groups of scribes may have shaped the formation of the Hebrew Bible. The surprising discoveries. One of the most intriguing findings came from analyzing the Ark narrative in the books of Samuel. This story, which describes the capture and return of the Ark of the Covenant, appears in 2 parts across 1 Samuel and 2 Samuel. Scholars had often assumed both sections came from the same source since they tell a continuous story. However, the AI analysis revealed something unexpected. The text in 1 Samuel showed a completely different linguistic pattern that did not match any of the 3 main scribal traditions. Meanwhile, the section in 2 Samuel aligned clearly with the Deuteronomistic history style found in Joshua through Kings. This discovery suggested that the Ark narrative was more complex than previously thought, possibly pieced together from multiple sources. The research team, which included Thomas Römer from Collège de France, emphasized that the AI could not only identify authorship patterns, but also explain its reasoning. The system would specify exactly which words or phrases led to its conclusions about each text's authorship. This transparency made the research more credible and allowed other scholars to verify the findings independently. The Physicist Connection. Physicist Eli Piasecki from Tel Aviv University was part of the Duke University research team, and his involvement shows why experts from physics play an important role in analyzing biblical material. Physics and mathematics offer methods that help researchers understand complex patterns, and these methods can be applied to ancient writings in the same way they are used in scientific data analysis. This gives scholars new ways to study material that has been debated for centuries. Physicists contribute skills in statistical analysis, pattern recognition, and mathematical modeling, which are all tools needed to examine large text collections like the Hebrew Bible. When biblical texts are broken down into measurable elements such as word usage and sentence structure, the methods used in physics help identify consistent patterns that may not be visible through traditional reading. This combination of technical and historical analysis allows researchers to compare results and reach clearer conclusions. The collaboration between physicists and biblical scholars created an interdisciplinary approach that was necessary for this project. Biblical scholars understand the historical context, the languages, and the long history of interpretation surrounding these texts. Physicists bring the ability to build precise models that measure differences and similarities in writing styles. Working together, these fields support one another, producing results that neither group could generate independently. This line of research began in 2010, when Shira Feigenbaum-Golovin worked with Israel Finkelstein and other experts to examine pottery fragments from around 600 BC. The team used statistical methods to study differences in handwriting, letter shapes, and writing habits, which helped them determine how many scribes were active during that period. Their results gained international attention because they showed that careful analysis of writing could help date and authenticate ancient inscriptions. The success of that early project laid the foundation for applying similar methods to biblical manuscripts. By proving that statistical analysis could reveal information about authorship and dating in ancient materials, researchers saw an opportunity to extend these techniques to much larger and more complex texts. This progression from pottery fragments to biblical books shows how the field has grown and how interdisciplinary work continues to expand what scholars can learn from ancient writings. Grok's viral conversations about design. Separate from the legitimate scientific research, Grok AI became the center of attention for entirely different reasons. Religious apologists and content creators discovered they could have extended conversations with Grok about probability, design in nature, and the origins of life. Some of these conversations were recorded and shared widely online. One notable interaction came from Calvin Smith, Executive Director of Answers in Genesis, Canada. He conducted what he called an educational experiment with Grok, asking the AI to analyze questions about life's origins using strict logic, mathematical probability, and observational science without relying on scientific consensus unless it aligned with those parameters. Under these specific constraints, Grok provided responses that many biblical creationists found agreeable. The AI discussed the mathematical improbability of life arising spontaneously from non-living matter, and suggested that a directed, intelligent process seemed more logical based on probability calculations. When pressed further, Grok agreed that such a directed process would require a conscious reasoning agent behind the design. The context matters problem. Here's where things get complicated and why we need to be careful about these viral AI conversations. Large language models like Grok, ChatGPT, and others do not actually think or believe anything. They generate responses based on patterns in their training data and how questions are framed. When Calvin Smith set specific parameters asking Grok to analyze questions without considering scientific consensus,
and I'd like you to answer all my questions according to strict logic, mathematical probability, and observational science alone. So I don't want you to give me any answers based on some kind of ideology.
he was essentially telling the AI to ignore the mainstream scientific understanding of evolution, natural selection, and abiogenesis. Under those artificial constraints, the AI provided responses that aligned with intelligent design arguments. However, when typical users ask Grok similar questions without those constraints, the AI provides very different answers that align with mainstream scientific consensus about evolution and the natural origins of life. This demonstrates a critical point about AI. The quality and nature of responses depend entirely on how you prompt the system. What Grok really thinks about religion. Several users have published their conversations with Grok about religious topics, and the results vary dramatically based on how questions are asked. One user engaged Grok in a philosophical discussion about whether a creator exists. When asked to evaluate all observable evidence, Grok initially provided responses suggesting that universe fine-tuning and biological complexity might point toward intelligent design. However, other users have prompted Grok to systematically evaluate Christian claims using Bayesian probability analysis. In these conversations, documented on websites analyzing AI responses to religion, Grok calculated extremely low probabilities for supernatural claims when applying strict statistical reasoning to historical evidence. The point is not that Grok believes or disbelieves in God. The AI has no beliefs. These conversations simply reveal how large language models mirror back the analytical framework presented in the prompts they receive. If you ask leading questions that assume design, you get responses acknowledging design. If you ask skeptical questions demanding evidence, you get more skeptical responses. The broader AI and religion landscape. The interaction between artificial intelligence and religious texts extends far beyond Grok. Researchers and tech companies worldwide are exploring how AI can translate, analyze, and interpret sacred writings from various traditions. Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, trained their AI models on biblical texts in thousands of languages. They used recordings of Bible stories, scripture readings, and evangelical messages in over 6,000 languages and dialects. Meta's stated goal was language preservation and creating speech recognition technology for endangered languages. Meanwhile, specialized religious chatbots have started to appear, designed to provide users with answers rooted in specific faith traditions. One notable example is Quran GPT, created by a Muslim student in India, which is programmed to respond to questions using the Quran and other Islamic texts. These AI systems are intended to make religious knowledge more accessible to people who may not have the time or opportunity to engage in years of traditional study. They can quickly provide explanations, references, and interpretations on a wide range of topics, from daily rituals to complex theological questions. At the same time, these chatbots raise important concerns about accuracy. AI hallucinations or misinterpretations could result in answers that do not align with authentic teachings, potentially spreading misinformation unintentionally. Users must approach these tools carefully, verifying responses against trusted sources to ensure that the guidance they receive is both correct and reliable. The legitimate concerns scientists have. Theologians and computer scientists have raised important points about the use of AI in matters of religion and spirituality. Professor Noreen Hertzfeld from St. John's University in Minnesota emphasizes that all large language models, including AI chatbots, can produce hallucinations, meaning they sometimes generate information that sounds confident but is entirely fabricated. These hallucinations are a known limitation of current AI systems and must be carefully considered when the subject matter involves sacred texts. When AI systems produce inaccurate or fabricated religious information, the consequences can be significant. People who treat AI-generated content as authoritative interpretations of Scripture may be misled about fundamental teachings. This concern is particularly relevant in communities that place a high value on scriptural accuracy and rely on these texts for guidance in daily life, making verification essential before accepting AI outputs as factual. Professor Hertzfeld and other experts note that the accuracy of AI outputs depends heavily on the prompts and data used. Even small changes in how questions are asked can produce different responses. This variability highlights the need for critical evaluation and cross-referencing with original texts rather than relying solely on AI-generated content. Another concern relates to spiritual growth and personal development. Ilia Delio, chair of theology at Villanova University, points out that engaging deeply with sacred texts through study, contemplation, and discussion with a community is a central part of many religious traditions. Using AI for quick answers could bypass these practices and reduce opportunities for reflection and personal insight that occur over time. Computer scientists and theologians agree that AI can serve as a tool for research and exploration, rather than a replacement for traditional religious practice. AI may assist scholars in identifying patterns, comparing translations, or organizing textual information. However, spiritual development and the interpretation of sacred texts remain human responsibilities, guided by careful study, reflection, and community engagement. The future of AI in biblical studies. Despite the concerns, legitimate researchers see enormous potential for AI in understanding ancient texts. The Duke University methodology could be applied to other important historical documents, helping verify authenticity and identify forgeries. Shira Feigenbaum-Golovin mentioned that the same technique could analyze documents attributed to figures like Abraham Lincoln to determine if they are genuine or fabricated. The Dead Sea Scrolls represent another promising application where a AI analysis could help scholars understand the origins and relationships between ancient manuscripts. The key difference between legitimate research and viral conversations is methodology and peer review. When scientists publish in journals like PLOS1, their work undergoes rigorous review by other experts who verify the methods and conclusions. Viral AI conversations lack this quality control, making them entertaining but not scientifically reliable. What this means for understanding the Bible. The scientific research from Duke University and other institutions provides valuable insights into biblical authorship without making claims about divine inspiration or religious truth. The AI identified 3 distinct writing traditions in the early biblical books, which helps scholars understand how these texts were composed and edited over centuries. These findings confirm what many biblical scholars already suspected based on literary analysis. The Bible was not written by a single author, but compiled from multiple sources over long periods. Different communities contributed their own theological perspectives and writing styles, creating the rich tapestry of texts we have today. For people of faith, these discoveries do not necessarily challenge religious beliefs. Many religious traditions have long acknowledged that human authors wrote biblical texts while still maintaining beliefs about divine inspiration, working through those human processes. Understanding human authorship better can actually deepen appreciation for how these texts developed. Artificial intelligence is helping researchers study biblical texts through formal academic work at institutions such as Duke University. While viral discussions involving chatbots like Grok show the need for caution when interpreting AI-generated answers on subjects such as religion and origins. The central point is not that AI has confirmed or disproven anything about Genesis, but that scientists are using computational methods to analyze ancient manuscripts, as they also observe how AI systems can produce responses that shift based on how questions are framed. What do you think? Should we trust these technologies to help us understand ancient scriptures? Or does something important get lost when we rely on algorithms instead of human wisdom? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.